All right, in this lesson video, we're reviewing lesson 8-6. We're going to be solving trinomials by factoring them and then setting them equal to 0. So before we get into solving that, I want you to remember how we got a trinomial by multiplying two binomials, because we need to understand that to be able to factor it. Remember, factoring is like working backwards. It's the opposite of multiplying them out. Okay, so for example, if we had these two binomials being multiplied together, we talked about this in a previous video where we can either distribute or we can use the FOIL method, which is multiplying the first terms, the outer terms, the inner terms, and the last terms, and then adding them all together. So I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to kind of more focus on the distributive property. The first thing I'm going to do is multiply this first term by both of these. So x times x minus x times 4. Here, I'll do it in red. X times x minus x times 4. And then I'm adding that to the second term here multiplied, right? 2 times x minus 2 times 4. So 2 times x. And this is a minus sign here, so I bring that minus sign down, 2 times 4. When you're distributing, you want to think of this whole thing, the first part, distribute the first term, and then adding it to the second term distributed, right? And when you're distributing, the sign in between the distributing should match the sign here, okay? So this is minus because of this. This is minus because of this, and there's no sign here. We're multiplying everything together, so we're adding the result that we get when we multiply. All right, so then we simplify. So this is x squared minus 4x plus 2x minus 8. And then last step is we combine the two middle terms, the two like terms, these two. So we get x squared, negative 4x plus 2x is negative 2x, and then minus 8. So this is our answer, right? Whenever you multiply two binomials, you get a trinomial. So when we're looking at solving this kind of equation, we start off with a trinomial. We want to factor it to get back to these two binomials, right? This whole term multiplied by this whole term. And then when we're solving, they're equal to 0, so that we use our zero product property. Whenever you multiply terms and the answer is 0, that means at least one, if not both of the terms, have to be 0 as well. Okay, so now we're going to focus on solving x squared plus 6x minus 16, and then after we factor it, like I said, we're going to solve it, so we're going to set it equal to 0. So how will we go about doing this? That's what we were going to start here in the notes on. All right, so we've got our equation here. We've got our description, but I'm going to show you how it works and then come back to it and explain it, because if you explain it first, it doesn't make sense. All right, so basically whenever you have your trinomial and you're factoring it, you want to look at your last term and include the sign with it. So our last term here is negative 16. I want to find all the factors of negative 16, all of the numbers that I can multiply together to get negative 16 that add up to this middle term, which is positive 6. So I need two numbers. I'm coming up with two brand new numbers. When I multiply those numbers together, I have to get this last term. When I add those two numbers together, I have to get the middle term. So they kind of created a chart here, right? So a little like T-chart, two-column chart. So all the factors of the last term are listed here. 1 and negative 16, negative 1 and positive 16, 2 and negative 8, negative 2 and positive 8, right? Any of these we multiply together, we get negative 16. But which pair can we add together to get positive 6, right? And you can clearly see the only pair that works is this last one. So the two brand new numbers that we're going to, the two brand new numbers we're going to focus on are negative 2 and positive 8, because negative 2 times 8 is negative 16. Negative 2 plus 8 is positive 6. Okay, so then What do I do with those two new numbers? That's what I write in my two binomials. So basically, I know my answer is going to be something like this, right? I'm going to have a binomial and a binomial. I don't know what my signs are going to be. It depends on what my number signs are. And I don't know what the second number is going to be in each binomial. Depends on what these numbers are. So here I got -2 and 8, so I'm going to put -2 and +8. Okay, so this is what I get when I factor this trinomial. If I were to distribute this and multiply it all out, guess what my answer would be? This trinomial, right? So now to solve it, I want to set it equal to 0. Okay, so this is the zero product property. Either this term has to be equal to 0 or this term has to be equal to 0, right? One or the other. I don't know which one it is, so I'm going to give both answer choices. If this term was set equal to 0, I would set x minus 2 equal to 0. To get x alone, I have to add 2 to both sides, so I would get x equals 2. If this term was equal to 0, I would have to get x alone, so I would subtract 8 from both sides, and I would get x equals -8. So my answer is either x equals 2 or x equals -8. And I'm done. I just solved. Solving is getting the solution for x. When you're factoring or solving a trinomial, there can be more than one solution, right? So these are our two possibilities. So now we're going to do some examples here. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 examples. So we'll kind of work through these quickly. And then we're going to add to this a little bit. All right, so factor each polynomial. Remember, I want to come up with all of the factors of the last term that add up to the middle term. And it takes trial and error. You know, you got to be familiar. All right, so what are all the factors of +3? Well, I've got 3 times 1. And I've got 1 times 3, right? Same thing. When I add these together, do I get 4? Yes, I do. So these are my two numbers. So when I write my binomials, I get this guy right here, right? I'm going to add 3 and then add 1. In this first part of the video, we're just factoring. In the second part, we go to the second page. That's when we're actually solving for using the zero product property. So now we're just factoring. All right, next, we want to find all of the factors of +32 that add up to 12. So what are some factors of +32? Well, we have 2 and 16. We've got 8 and 4. And we've got 1 and 32. Okay, so which set of numbers adds up to 12? This guy, right? So my two binomials are going to be x plus 8 and x plus 4. If either one of these numbers was negative, then we would put the minus sign in front of it. That's all we're doing. You're just setting up two binomials, and these are the two numbers you're putting in each. Easy peasy. Next one, all the factors of -6 that add up to, this is a -1 in front of the x. So factors of -6 are -1 and 6, -6 and 1, -3 and 2, -2 and 3. So which of those sets of numbers adds up to -1? This guy right here. -3 and +2. So my binomials are going to be x minus 3 and x plus 2. And you can write x plus 2 times x minus 3. The order that you put these two numbers in doesn't matter, but these are the two numbers we're using. So if you put x minus 2, that's wrong. It's not these two numbers, it's these two. The negative has to stay with the 3. Okay? Number 12, all the factors, I'm going to stop switching pen colors here. All the factors of -3 that add up to -2, -1 and +3, -3 and +1, which adds up to -2, this guy. So I'm going to have x minus 1 times x plus 3, because it's a -1 and a +3. Next, factors of 20 that add up to 12. So I've got 2 and 10, 5 and 4, or 1 and 20. So which of those adds up to 12? 2 and 10. So my answer is x plus 2 times x plus 10. Positive 2, positive 10. Factors of positive 24 that add up to negative 14. All right, so how do I come up with a positive answer when I multiply, but a negative answer when I subtract? Both numbers are going to have to be negative, right? Because a negative times a negative gives us a positive. A negative plus a negative will give us a negative. So we could say negative 6 and negative 4, negative 3 and negative 8, negative 2, negative 12, negative 1, negative 24. Did I miss any? I think that's it. So which of these adds up to negative 14? When I multiply negative 2 times negative 12, I get positive 24. When I add negative 2 plus negative 12, I get negative 14. So it's this guy. Okay, x minus 2, x minus 12. That's our answer. I hope this is making sense, the factoring. Last one. All right, here. Excuse me. This is written backwards, so I want to rewrite it. So I'm going to change the order here. It's not written in standard form. So I'm going to write y squared plus 11y plus 18. Now, what are the factors of 18 that add up to 11? 2 and 9. X plus 2, x plus 9. All right, for this one, what are the factors of y squared that add up to 2 times x times y? Okay, well, remember, whenever we're looking at these kind of problems, we take the, we take the factor, the two numbers that multiply to get this number, that add up to get this number, the number in front of our variable, right? We don't count the variable in this middle term. We only count the leading coefficient. So here's the x squared term. We're not going to look at the x here, right? It's kind of like, here's a squared. We ignore the a here. We just look at the number in front of a because this is a squared. So here, this is x squared. So we're only going to look at the term in front of x. So I want you to think of this as x squared plus 2y times x plus y squared, right? So the number in front of our x term here, I just flip-flop the x and the y, is 2y. So what two terms, what two things multiply to get y squared, but add up to get 2y? Y times y, right? Y times y. Y times y is y squared. Y plus y is 2y. So we're going to get x plus y and x plus y. Our two factors of the last term are y and y that add up to the middle term here, the number in front of x. I know that was a little tricky. It's the same as all of them. It was just a little tricky because we have variables instead of numbers. Okay, two more. So same thing here. Our leading variable is a, so we're going to ignore the a here for a second. So we have a squared minus, ignore the a, we're looking for 4b squared. So what term adds up, or sorry, multiplies to 4b squared and adds up to negative 4b? Right? What can I multiply together to get 4b squared? When I add them together, I get negative 4b. So I know I'm going to have a something and a something, right? What about negative 2b and negative 2b? If I multiply negative 2b times negative 2b, don't I get positive 4b squared? Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. B times b is b squared. Yep. And when I add these together, negative 2b plus negative 2b, which is really negative 2b minus 2b, isn't that negative 4b? Yes. So this would be my two binomials. My two terms I'm looking for are negative 2b and negative 2b, okay? When the last term here is squared, that means that your terms are going to match. They're going to look the same when your last term here is squared, if that helps at all. Last one. All right, I've got x squared plus 6xy plus 7y squared, minus 7y squared. So I know my last two terms are going to look similar because I got y squared. What factors of negative 7 add up to positive 6? Right, because I'm really thinking of this as x squared plus, 6y, and then that x, I move it to the back because x squared, x goes in the back, minus 7y squared. So factors of negative 7y squared that add up to positive 6y. What about negative 1 and positive 7? Negative 1y and positive 7y. Negative 1 times positive 7 is negative 7, right? So if I had negative 1y and 7y, if I multiply them together, I get this. If I add them together, I get this. So this whole thing isn't a perfect square. The y squared part is a perfect square, but this 7 hasn't been squared. So that's why these won't match. Okay, so if I write my two binomials, I'm going to get x, because that's his first term, x. And then my two answers are negative 1y and positive 7y. Those were a little tricky. Those were tricky. We're still following the same rules. Those were just a little tricky. Okay, let's move on. So now we've factored a bunch. Now we want to set them equal to 0 to solve. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing here. We've got a few examples to do. Maybe I can see that clearly. All right, cool. So same exact thing. We're going to factor, and then we're just going to set it equal to 0 to solve. All right, all the factors of positive 3 that add up to negative 4. What about negative 1 and negative 3? Negative 1 times negative 3 is positive 3. Negative 1 plus negative 3 is negative 4. So I'm going to have x equals 0, and my two factors I came up with are negative 1 and negative 3. So now to solve this, I factored it. Now I'm going to set each set of parentheses equal to 0. So I'm going to have either x minus 1 equals 0, or I'm going to have x minus 3 equals 0. So if x minus 1 equals 0, x would have to equal 1. If x minus 3 equals 0, x would have to equal 3. So these are my two answers, x equals 1 or x equals 3. Either way, if I plug a 1 in for x, 1 minus 1 is 0, 1 minus 3 is negative 2, 0 times negative 2 is 0. If x was 3, 3 minus 1 is 2, 3 minus 3 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0. So it can be either one of these two would make this correct. Number 2. I got a factor, and then I got to set them equal to 0 to solve. So factors of 4 that add up to negative 5. What about negative 1 and negative 4? Okay, so my squared term here is y. And I'm going to set it equal to 0. Oops. And then my two terms I said are negative 1 and negative 4. Negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. Negative 1 plus negative 4 is negative 5. So then I set each set of parentheses equal to 0. So y would equal 1, or y would equal 4. Next, I hope as I'm going through these that you'll start to see the pattern, because I solved them all the exact same way. Okay, factors of positive 9 that add up to 10, 1 and 9. So I'm going to have m plus 1 times m plus 9 equals 0. I do want to remind you that you need to show all of your work, which I'm doing here. Please do not just write the answers. Do not write in this space 1 or 3. Because I know good and well you didn't do the work if that's all you're writing on your paper. If we went to the trouble of doing all this work, we're not going to just not show it, right? We want to make sure we get credit for it. So show all of your steps. So I got to see this part and then set each of these equal to 0 to solve for the variable. M plus 1 equals 0. M plus 9 equals 0. M has to equal -1 or M has to equal -9. Number 10. X squared plus 6 equals 5x. Here we do not have this equal to 0. So I need to move this term to this side of the equal sign and get 0 here. So I'm going to subtract 5x from this side, and whatever I do on one side of the equal sign, I'm going to do the same thing over here. So this side becomes 0. Bring down my equal sign. And over here I get x squared plus 6 minus 5x. And I want to write this in standard form, so I'm going to stick this in between the x squared and the 6. So x squared minus 5x plus 6. All right, so now here's my trinomial. Now I want to factor it. What are factors of positive 6 that add up to -5? Well, let's list them out. Positive 6 that adds up to -5. Well, I have 1 and 6. If I add those together, do I get -5? No. What about 2 and 3? If I add those together, do I get -5? I get +5. So what if I made them both negative? Is -2 times -3 equal to +6? Yes. Is -2 plus -3 equal to -5? Yes. So these are my two terms. So x minus 2, x minus 3, that's still equal to 0, and then I set each set of parentheses equal to 0 to solve. X minus 2 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. So here to get x alone, I have to add 2 to both sides, so x equals 2. Here, to get x alone, I have to add 3 to both sides, so x equals 3. So x is either going to be 2 or 3. Either one of those will make this a true statement. Number 11. A squared equals 11a minus 18. Remember, I have to have 0 on one side. Have to have 0. And I do not want a squared to be negative. I don't. I don't want to subtract a squared from here because then it'll be -a squared, and I don't want that. So I'm going to subtract 11a to get it over here. So I'm going to have a squared minus 11a equals -18. And then I'm going to add 18 to both sides. Right? So this becomes 0. Bring down my equal sign. I can't combine any of these because they're not like terms. So I get a squared minus 11a plus 18. So here's my trinomial. What are two factors of positive 18 that add up to -11? Well, factors of positive 18 are 3 and 6, 2 and 9, 1 and 18. If I add any of those together, do I get -11? No. Do I get +11? Yeah, 2 and 9. So what if I made it -2 and -9? Is -2 times -9 positive 18? Yes. When I add them together, do I get -11? Yes. So I'm going to have my two binomials, x minus 2, x minus 9, and I'm going to set each of those equal to 0. X minus 2 equals 0, so x is going to have to equal 2. X minus 9 equals 0, so x would have to equal +9. So either one of those would be my answer. Put a little or in between. Okay, last one, and then 2 word problems. Running out of room. What are the factors of positive 15 that add up to -8? Well, what are factors of 15? 3 and 5. 3 plus 5 equals +8. So what if I made it -3 and -5? -3 times -5 is 15. -3 plus -5 is -8. So I'm going to have y minus 3, y minus 5. So there's my -3 and -5, multiply to 15, add to -8, and then I set each of these equal to 0. Add 3 to both sides, and I get y equals 3. Add 5 to both sides, y equals 5. And there we go. All right, 2 word problems. Let me back up a little bit. All right, first one says use the formula H equals VT minus blah, blah. Okay, that whole thing. Use that to solve each problem. Football. A punter can kick a football with an initial velocity, that's V, of 48 feet per second. How many seconds, which is T, will it take for the ball to first reach a height, H, of 32 feet? So we're using this equation up here, this formula. So we have height is 32. So I'm going to use H equals VT minus 16T squared. H is 32. The initial velocity is 48. The seconds, how many seconds will it take? We don't know, so that stays T minus 16T squared. Okay, so this is our equation. We have to solve for T. So to solve this, we want to get 0 on one side and factor, right? So I've got negative T squared here. The term that's squared, I do not want it negative. So I'm going to add 16T to both sides, and I'm going to subtract 48T from both sides. So add 16T squared to both sides, and then subtract 48T. So I'm going to end up with 16T squared minus 48T, and this is positive 32, equals 0. Oh, this is a tricky one. They gave you a number in front. Oh, we can divide everything. Sorry. All right, so we don't want a number in front of T, right? We do not want a number in front of T. So how can I get rid of this number? Can I divide everything by 16? Yes, I can. It is possible, right? So if I take my equation, 16T squared minus 48T plus 32 equals 0, and I divide everything here by 16, then I have to do the same thing on the other side of the equation, right? And so this just stays 0. So I'm going to have 16T squared divided by 16 is just T squared. 48 divided by 16 is 3, so I'm going to put minus 3T. And 32 divided by 16 is 2, so plus 2. Equals 0 divided by 16 is 0. Now I can deal with this trinomial, right? What are the factors of positive 2 that add up to negative 3? Well, I know factors of 2 are 2 and 1, right? 2 plus 1 is 3. So how do I get negative 3? Well, I got to make them both negative. Negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2. Negative 1 plus negative 2 is negative 3. So I get T minus 1 times T minus 2. That making sense? The factors of the last term that add up to the middle term are negative 1 and negative 2. And it doesn't matter which order you write them in. Okay? Once I have my two binomials, I set each one equal to 0. So if T minus 1 is equal to 0, then T has to be equal to 1. If T minus 2 equals 0, then T has to be equal to 2. So what is the, how many seconds will it take for the ball to first reach a height of 32 feet? Okay, so this is important where it says to first reach a height. Think about a punter when they kick a football, right? Here's the punter. Here's his leg up because he's kicking. I know that's stupid. All right, so the football, it's gonna be down here on the little T, right? Here's my football. It's gonna go up and then it's gonna come back down, right? And here's the football, and here's the football mid-punt or whatever. All right, so it says, how many seconds will it take for the ball to first reach a height of 32 feet? So let's say 32 feet is, let's say it's right here, 32 feet. So it's either 1 second or 2 seconds. So after 1 second, it's going to reach 32 feet. Then it's going to kind of max out, and then it's got to come back down, and it's going to reach 32 feet again. Right? So that's why we have two different answers here, 1 or 2. After 1 second, it's at 32 feet. Then it goes up higher, and then it comes back down, and after 2 seconds, it's at 32 feet again. But the question said, how many seconds will it take for the ball to first reach a height of 32 feet? So which one is it going to hit first? This one after 1 second. So our answer is T, 1 second. Answer, 1 second. Yeah, think through it, make sure it makes sense. Okay, next one, we're going to use the exact same equation. H equals VT minus 16t squared. If a rocket launched with an initial velocity of 1,600 feet per second, that's V, when will the rocket be 14,400 feet high? So we're looking for T, how many seconds will it be that high? That's our height. Okay, so I'm going to plug the numbers I have into my equation here. When height is 14,400 and velocity is 1,600, how many seconds will that take? T minus 16t squared. Okay, so I'm going to solve this the exact same way. I need to get all of my terms on one side of the equal sign and 0 on the other side. I do not want this to be negative, so I'm first going to add 16t squared to both sides. That's going to go away. So I'm going to have 16t squared plus 14,400 equals 1,600t. And I want 0 over here, so I'm going to subtract 1,600t. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. So this goes away and it's 0. And I want this in standard form, so instead of tacking this onto the end over here, I'm going to stick it in the middle. So I'm going to have 16t squared minus 1,600t plus 14,400. Okay, so here's my trinomial, and I do not want any numbers in front. So since there's a 16 in front, I got to get rid of it. Right now, t is being multiplied. T squared is being multiplied by 16. So to get rid of that, I want to divide by 16. And I can't just divide one term, so I have to divide everything by 16. Whatever I do on the left side of my equal sign, I got to do to the right. Okay, so 16t squared divided by 16 is just t squared. Negative 1,600 divided by 16 is negative 100. And 14,400 divided by 16, okay, that's 900. Oh, the sun's coming in. Plus 900 equals 0 divided by 16 is 0. It's funny, the light. So now I've got this guy. What are the factors of positive 900 that add up to negative 100? So this is a tough one. You have to kind of play around with the numbers, right? So what can I multiply together to get 900? That when I add them together, I get negative 100. What are all, this is going to take forever. What are all the factors of 900? Okay, so when I multiply, I could do, it's obviously not going to be 1 and 900 because when I add those, I don't get negative 100. So what about 2 and 450? When I add those, do I get 100? No. What about 10 and 90? When I add those together, do I get 100? Yeah, I do actually. 10 times 90 is 900. 10 plus 90 is 100. But I don't have positive 100. I have negative. So I have to make them both negative, right? When I add these together, I got 452. That didn't work. These together was 100. That didn't work. These together is negative 100. So that works. So these are my two terms. Okay, so I'm going to have t minus 10 times t minus 90 equals 0. And when I solve for both of those, I get either t equals 10 or t equals 90. So what was the question? When will it take the rocket? Oh, when will the rocket be 14,400 feet high? The rocket will be that high. Remember, when a rocket launches, it goes up and then it comes back down, right? That's just the nature of anything with gravity. So when will it be at that height? It'll be at that height after 10 seconds and after 90 seconds. So like around here, 14,400. Then it keeps going up and then it comes back down, 14,400. So if we're thinking about time this way, this is about 10 seconds. And then it keeps going, comes back down after about 90 seconds. Does that kind of make sense? So the rocket will be at that height after 10 seconds, and then again after 90 seconds. I hope that's helping to do word problems with you guys. Don't forget how to solve, how to factor, and if you have any questions, let me know.